and welcome back to the She Leads the Way podcast, where we celebrate women in business and women in life in Dubai, in the region and across the globe. I'm your host, Nikki Bedford, and today we're speaking with Sabrina Holmes. She's the General Manager of the Australian Business Council here in Dubai. She has over 3 decades of experience, both as an employee and as a business owner, and she has a passion for human potential and emotional intelligence. In this episode today, we're going to be speaking about her experience within the Australian Business Council and what it does for businesses in Dubai, and also leaning into her self-development experience, talking about self-sabotage and how to help people overcome self-sabotage. Sabrina, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm fabulous. I'm very excited, yeah.
So let's kick it off. First of all, I'd love to hear about you and how you found your way to Dubai.
Trailing behind a husband, as so many of us do. We basically moved our family to Taipei first with my husband's job, and then moved here. We've been here 12 years.
Oh, wow, 12 years.
Yeah, my kids have never known life in Australia until recently. And yeah, in that time, I've just found my feet and created a tribe and not looking back.
You love it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because 12 years, you would have seen such a huge amount of change.
Yeah, massive amount of change. And I think I was really homesick for a very, very long time. And suddenly, recently, it's kind of flipped the other way. Yeah.
So Taipei, how did you find the difference between Taipei and Dubai?
My husband and I always talk about this. I didn't enjoy it. Okay. It was really tough. A lot less English spoken. And I just left my family with my first baby, first grandchild. But got here and it was a totally different experience. Yeah, opportunities left, right and centre, which has been fabulous.
Fantastic. At the land of opportunities, Dubai. So your role as General Manager of the Australian Business Council in Dubai, tell me about that.
Fairly new role for me, but really excited to have, well, first of all, to work with Australians all the time. But yeah, loving it. I mean, it's all about connecting Australians to opportunities, to other Australians. It's just such a social environment, but I'm learning a lot as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, just I think to be overseas and have the opportunity to be rooted in my heritage is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And with other businesses in Dubai, how does the Australian Business Council help support local businesses?
Yeah, look, it's all about, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. We're a soft landing space. So if somebody's considering coming to Dubai, then we like to sort of let them know that we're here as a resource, as well as for those who have been here for many, many years. It's just connectivity. Yeah, bringing people together with other people, with job opportunities, with resources and information. It's all about the networking and the who you know and where you can find the information. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as just not knowing where to get something certified or tested or, you know, little things.
100%.
Yeah. And we work closely with all the state government offices as well and the embassy. So there's just a lot of pooled resources there.
It's incredible because I have to say, I obviously am a member. Yeah. And when I did become a member, I'd already been in Dubai for about a year. And then I thought, oh my gosh, why am I not a part of this Australian Business Council? I am one of them. So I signed up, and then when I went to the first gathering, and then you greeted me at the door with all of your boundless energy, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm home. And it was really funny because as I entered and I was just surrounded by all of these other Australians, which you sort of don't get every day when you're in Dubai. We're not as common as you would think. And so it was just such a family feel, but everyone in there wants to help as well from a business perspective, from a networking perspective.
Yeah.
And
I think there's, you know, you've got people who've just arrived and you've got people who've been here for over 20 years. And I think that's where the magic happens because you've got fresh eyes and then you've got loads of experience and knowledge and people are happy to share. You know, we're all in the same boat. We're all expats trying to find our feet.
Absolutely.
And I'm often overwhelmed by the enthusiasm with which people want to reach out and offer help.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just such a great way to function and it's a great thing because we can all see ourselves back when we first arrived. So it makes it easy to lend a hand.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely found that. In terms of what's coming up, because I know you always have so many different events, so many things on, so many opportunities to network. What does the rest of 2023 have planned for us?
Yeah, look, it's already shaping up to be quite busy. So we're getting ready to launch a brand new website, which I'm super excited about. So for the membership, that's going to be a slick new experience.
Oh,
I'm very excited. But we've got some big events. We've got the big key events, AFL Grand Final, Melbourne Cup. We'll obviously have a Christmas do. We've got a great Women in Wellness event coming up in October as a nod to Breast Cancer Month. And then our monthly networking. We're actually bringing back something called G'day Cafe, which is a morning networking event just for people who can't always make it in the evening.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so
G'day Cafe.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'll definitely be there.
Yeah.
I'll see you there.
Great.
So let's pivot. Let's talk about self-development, because I know that this forms a huge part of your experience and love. We're looking to talk more about self-sabotage, but I know that you sort of specialize in so many different areas. But let's start with self-sabotage. Actually, let's first start like how you came into self-development as a passion point.
Yeah, it's actually quite a fun story. I was 14 and my parents are divorced, and my stepmom, who's still a very key person in my life, took me to my first, self-development, personal.
At 14?
Yeah, 14.
That's impressive.
I know. She was really, really switched on to this stuff, and it was called Alpha Dynamics at the time. And I remember sitting there listening to people ask questions that to me just seemed ridiculous, because it was a bit like, well, duh, this is the answer to that question. And that was it. It kicked something off in me. I think I read every possible self-help book and author for the next goodness knows how many years, did my own sort of journeying, which never stops, I don't think, but sort of started my own process. And kind of it just grew from there. And then my sister and I wanted to start something called Glow, which was going to be a space for women to focus on nutrition and mental health and all sorts of stuff. We had a little bit of trouble kicking it off the ground, but in the meantime, I got my coaching qualifications and just took it in a solo direction.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Like 14, that's incredibly impressive to fall in love with self-development at that age, especially as a woman.
Yeah.
Because you think about, like, that's the hardest period to a degree, the 13 to 16-year-old period where you're sort of figuring out who you are, becoming a woman and all of that. So that, to have fallen in love with that means that it's probably, you were always meant to do that.
Yeah, in hindsight, actually now that I'm talking to you and putting things together, I think that was the first time I realised, and I didn't have the word self-sabotage at that point,
yes,
but it was the first understanding I had that we had the power to change things in our own lives above anything else. And I think that's what got me excited, is it's sort of like, life will throw things at you, but actually there's a lot of it that is internal and that we have control over. And that was exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about self-sabotage, how would you define what that is exactly?
For me, in terms of how it presents with my clients, it is it's that feeling of confusion over why I know that that's what I need to be doing to get to that, whether it's a weight goal or a work goal or whatever it is, I know, but something is, I can't get there. There's a constant sort of pattern of behavior that is stopping me, even though I know. And then it's confusion, because people go, well, how can I know that that's what I need to do, but I can't do it? It's like your feet are stuck in cement. And that to me is always the presenting thing. People always go, look, I know that I should be blah, 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 but I just can't seem to do it. And that's,
that's interesting, because I think that everyone at some point in their lives would have experienced self-sabotage. As you're speaking about it now, I'm thinking about all of the times where, because it's usually as well when you're questioning yourself or your worth or your own ability to actually fulfill a task, and you almost want to prove yourself right, that you're unable to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are some of the things that people would do? Like, how does that represent?
So, a lot of the time I find in women, and I mostly coach women organically, not because I chose it, that's just how it happened, but often it was relationships. So showing up in a relationship constantly in a state of submissiveness or weakness, or choosing the wrong person over and over, that sort of repetitive behavior, or around weight and sort of knowing that there needs to be these things to get to that point, but not being able to execute on those things. A frustration. And I think what happens is, as you say, we all experience self-sabotage at some point, but until it interrupts you or until it starts to cause you pain, it's not really a problem.
Yeah.
You know, like it can be something quite small, but if it starts to cause you this feeling of, well, this is big now, and it's or it's annoying, or it's frustrating, or it's painful, or it's sad.
Yes.
That's when you find that somebody will go and seek out help.
Yeah, definitely. And that's when usually you're at the end of the line. Because I know that sometimes, only talking from my own experience, when I was going through things that I'm like, oh, I know I need to do that so much, but you then derail yourself to a degree when that became the priority and not what you actually are trying to do becomes the priority. So it's also just about going within and figuring out, okay, well, why am I so scared, or what feelings are coming up for me? Yeah.
And I think, like anything with people, you know, you don't seek out help until it really presents as a problem. You know, if you can live with it, a lot of people just do, or they never question it.
And so what would they do? So if someone woke up and thought, okay, wow, what I've been doing has been really unhelpful, I'm overwhelmed by this, what do I do?
I honestly think a lot of people don't even realize that there are options. And I think that is probably what's driven me a lot over the years to share that message of you can actually do something about it. Because I don't think people realize they can. I think they accept and go, well, this is it, you know, or they'll try a bunch of different stuff. And so I often found that the people who came to me were referrals. So I would have a success with one person and they would tell, a few people, and it would just sort of go that way. But if I could tell you my ultimate dream for the world is to be able to get out there and say, hey, everybody, you can actually make these changes, you know, but there's a lot of people way bigger and more successful than me already spreading that message. So,
well, it's an important one, especially I think the biggest thing that comes out of it is just knowing that it's sometimes when you are self-sabotaging, it's a reflection of you. On the other side of self-sabotage will be just so much happiness and success, knowing that you've broken through something. Yeah. It's just the difficult things sometimes that hold us back. And it obviously is something that you find to be important, so important that you want to derail it because you're not sure that you're able to push through. Yeah. So it's almost the biggest part of it is that self-awareness in knowing that, okay, this actually represents a self-sabotage other than you just thinking that you can't do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you're right. There's a really fine line between somebody going, I think I'm actually derailing myself versus just going, oh, I give up. I don't know how to fix this. Yeah. It's out of my control.
Yeah. So Sabrina, can you tell me what is the cause of self-sabotage?
Generally speaking, I always find my husband in particular and other people go, oh, don't talk to me about childhood issues. But the truth is, inevitably, there's a traumatic experience. Now, trauma can be anything from physical or mental abuse to something as silly as, like, I have a childhood memory of a kid at school giving me a hard time because he named me something that made me cry. When the word trauma can be all encompassing, it doesn't have to be wildly serious, but it is always a pivotal point where a decision gets made or a belief gets created, or you attach something to your identity that sticks, and it sticks with you because that's how strong we are, and it stays, and it's a protective mechanism. It is always about self-protection because that is what we're built to do. The problem is that you can undermine yourself as you get older, and it stops being protective and it starts becoming a problem when you're trying to achieve something different. It's almost like the child stays, locked to that idea, but the adult needs to let it go.
Yeah, of course. And as you get older, it becomes more subconscious as well. It's not presenting itself every day as something that you know that you have. It's just...
Exactly. And you touched on exactly why I feel so passionate about this, because people feel stuck because they don't see it for what it is. They don't understand. And all I want to do, I feel like sometimes I just want to pull the veil off and say, ta-da, we can fix it. You know what I mean? Like, there's enough that comes at you externally in life that is difficult to deal with without adding your own, you being your own problem maker. Yeah. It's first of all acknowledging that it is a self-sabotage, that it is something that you're creating yourself, which is difficult for people to do. It's not common knowledge. And I often find in my coaching sessions that it is about putting that as a possibility, and them going, oh my God, I didn't realize, you know. And yeah, it stays with you, and you just repeat behavioral patterns until you've got your eyes open and the capacity to kind of let it go and leave it back in your childhood.
Do you ever find that people are likely to have had some trauma but cannot recollect what that would be?
Yes.
Even though they're clearly self-sabotaging?
Yeah. Can I tell you a fun story?
Please.
So one of my favorite stories, and I hope one day she watches or hears this podcast, but there was a beautiful lady who came to me. She was 53, and this was going back 20 years. She had had a chronic phobia of birds since she couldn't remember when, her whole life. And I mean chronic. She couldn't walk outside. She couldn't sit in a beer garden or an outdoor restaurant. She would park her car as close as possible to a venue, run, like really saw her feather on the ground and would have a panic attack, like horrible.
That's awful.
Debilitating. In her mind for 53 years. She couldn't remember ever not feeling that way. And we did 3 sessions of hypnosis and a couple of NLP processes and helped her, you know, along with coaching either side. And I still hold on to the email I got from her. She wrote me this beautiful email. She now, or at the time, was out for walks and enjoying dinner with friends outside and going to the beach. After 3 sessions, I think we ended up doing 5 or 6 sessions.
Oh my God.
Total. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
I know. And that for me is all I would ever need.
Yeah.
From somebody, you know, that's the difference between sort of coaching at that top level versus working with the subconscious,
yes.
as you well pointed out, is that change can happen like that.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's really freeing.
It's just almost going into your brain and be like, boop, boop, boop. Yeah, like that's not true.
It's crazy. Often it's just one little linchpin. Do you know what I mean? And that's it.
So in terms of, now we know what trauma is, now we know what self-sabotage is and where it's come from, trauma. What are some practical strategies that you would put in place to help with that?
First and foremost, you have to be able to acknowledge, you know, and I think there's that space where people don't understand what they're doing and why. But if they get to that point where they go, actually, it's me getting in my own way, that's the powerful point, because that's when you suddenly realize that it's within your control,
yeah, of course,
to make change. And look, I think it varies in terms of how severe the behavior is. Some people can actually work through that stuff on their own. So there's so many books out there in terms of unconscious strategy changes. But I always say to people, don't ever stop looking for a solution. Don't give up, because there's always one out there. It might be a coach, it might be a therapist of some kind, it might be a book that you pick up, it's different for everybody. So I think in terms of techniques, it's difficult to say that there's 1 or 2 techniques that you could take away, because people respond different. Like even with me, my background is in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Not everyone responds to it either, you know, whereas I've got a really good friend who does a very different style of healing, and she would attract a very different style of person. So it's curiosity. For me, it's be curious and don't ever stop looking for a solution, because it's there. Yeah. You know?
So it's something that I have tried to do everything to stop, because I caught myself in the mirror one time and I was like, like while I was chewing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, stop it. I've tried everything to stop, but a lot of it is so subconscious. I don't even know I'm doing it. I'm thinking, and is that something that is, first of all, is that a trauma?
I'm going to go with mild. I would actually say it's probably more of a behavioural, subconscious behaviour that you've created. I would be less inclined to say it's attached to trauma.
Yeah. It doesn't feel traumatic.
No.
But what is traumatic?
I know. Who are we to judge? No, I would be less inclined to say it's trauma-based, but that doesn't mean that it's not self-sabotage in some way, because there's a behaviour that you've created that is probably attached to a very sort of a mild belief around something. And when it starts to happen without you noticing it does. There are definitely things that you can do, but part of it is acknowledgement, which you've done.
Thank you.
The second part is it's always about there's a moment in time where we make a decision. Have you ever heard of people who try to give up smoking for years and years and years, and all of a sudden one day that's it, done, stop. There's something that happens to us. It's like our leverage or our why, our reason becomes heavy enough or important enough that there's a line in the sand and we make a decision. But yeah, that can definitely be changed.
Great. Okay, let's resume to normal programming. But that was very helpful. Thank you. Next time I see you,
off camera. Yeah, beautiful.
No, amazing. But I'd love to, I think that's incredibly helpful, though, to understand that really with NLP, with hypnosis, whenever you're trying to do something that is talking to the subconscious, it also starts with that awareness, and for you to be like, okay, I'm ready, or I'm open to making this change.
And that's a really big thing, actually, when you say that, because one of the things that I always have to preface when I'm either coaching or doing hypnosis or anything like that with somebody is they have to have buy-in.
Yes.
So one thing I'll never do is take a client who's come through somebody else. Does that make sense? Like if somebody says, I've brought my husband for you to sit, that's not okay.
Yeah, okay.
Because
interesting.
It's not going to work. Yeah. Nothing's going to work.
And half the time the husband is probably like, oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. Tick, I've done what she said.
Yeah.
But there has to be that desire to make change.
Yes.
And you can't be ready to go, it's like going to a doctor and asking for a pill for something, systemically has become an issue across the globe. This doesn't work that way because it's not me as a coach that's facilitating your change. You've got to make the change.
Of course.
All I can do is give you some tools and help you open your eyes.
Yeah.
So unless you're kind of champing at the bit for it, it's all on you.
Do you have any other success stories of people that have come through something difficult?
Yeah, quite a lot. And I think it's so beautiful to watch somebody have that aha moment where everything lights up and they suddenly, it's like freedom clicks in, I think one of the recurring themes, especially with women, is that sense of I keep choosing the same kind of partner and I can see it's unhealthy for whatever reason, but there's a recurring theme. I had, a lady years ago who just almost kind of went, I'm just not going to date anymore because I can't trust myself.
Aww.
I can't because there's something happening and I keep making exactly the same wrong choice.
It's just like, I'm ready to date. The bad men are like, so are we?
Yeah. We're here. But she was aware enough to appreciate that it was something within her that was creating that same pattern. So we worked together for, again, I think 6 or 7 sessions, and she emailed me, I think 6 to 12 months later to say that she was in a really healthy relationship and they were getting engaged. It was lovely. So they're those great moments.
You have such an emotional profession. Do you find that, because hearing that, I just sort of think you would just be overwhelmed with so much happiness when that happened. But even when people come in and you can see that they're hurting, that would be also hard on your heart.
Yeah. And the hardest part is, and I think the one thing I've struggled with a lot is you can't at any point say to somebody, well, open your eyes, it's right there. You know what I mean? Can you not see what I'm seeing? Like, here's how to fix it. Break up with him. Don't do this. You can't do that. It's got to be a journey that they take themselves.
Of course. Yeah. No, sometimes you'd like to.
Yeah. I know, because I always seek out, and this is the other thing, is that my journey never stops. I'm constantly looking at healing the parts of me that I've brought from my childhood. So I found myself turning to my mentors and my coaches going, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
No. Please give me the answers.
I'm tired. But, the reward as the person having the journey is in actually having that aha moment for yourself.
Yeah.
There's no point somebody else giving you that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I think it's been a solid message constantly. So it's not so much a piece of advice, but it's always I've always been encouraged with my mentors to sit in a space of authenticity and vulnerability. And it's really interesting, this word is coming up a lot for me at the moment, is change is scary, and deciding to make something better when it's not doing really well can be frightening. So allowing yourself to be vulnerable and being really honest about that is always the first step. And I think that's the message that's always been given to me from, family, from mentors. And so that's it. Just be brave, be vulnerable, be authentic.
Oh, I love that. That's great. It's beautiful. Do you have a worst piece of advice? Have you ever been given advice that you think later down the track, absolutely not?
I had an awful boss in Sydney once who made me sit further down the corridor because I was too vivacious and too loud. And I remember crying, thinking, that's who I am. How do I make that different? Anyway, needless to say, it didn't last very long.
That's the most beautiful part of you as well, which I'm sure you know now.
Yeah.
Or you would be told all the time, but I was young.
I was 18, 19 years old, so it was rough. But that's, how you turn up to these things and what you do with them is what shapes everything. So I look back at that now and I just laugh because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And I love it.
And embrace that and be like, this is me.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful conversation. Sabrina, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It's so exciting.